Thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, I would like to thank all of our veterans for being here today. And we thank you for your service, and we're all here to honor you. Let's start off by hearing Dr. Radhakrishna play the national anthem on the piano.
First of all, I want to thank the library and the Public Relations Commission for sponsoring this event. And also this week we had an event over at the Senior Center for our vets and at the Elks Club on Friday night. So we appreciate all that hard work. I would like to acknowledge some of the officials that are here. We have Third Ward Councilman Sharon Carmichael. Sharon, get a wave. We have at-large Councilman Laura Leibowitz, at-large Sarah Rashid. Sarah, get a wave. And I do know Dennis Espen, who's the council president, is going to be here shortly. Listen, thank you for putting this programming on. For those vets out there that if you have not signed up to the VA clinic off of Old New Brunswick Road, please do so. Congressman Bloom fought very hard to get that VA clinic here based in Piscataway. So please take advantage of the services that are out there for you, because if you don't, then the VA will always look at closures if it's not used a lot. So tell your friends or anybody, you don't have to live in Piscataway to use that clinic. Please take advantage of the services that are here in Piscataway for you vets. And on behalf of the Township Council and myself, thank you for everything you've done in service of our country. So with that, I will turn it back over. And I know Kitty Jucker will be here in a little bit, but we're like the Navy. We like to start on time, right? Not that the Army doesn't, so, or any of the other branches. So here you go.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. My name is Staff Sergeant William Boone from the United States Marine Corps. And thank you. As the mayor said, the Navy on time, what they don't know is that the Navy is part of the Marine Corps. That's a joke, by the way. We are the infantry for the Navy. Whenever the Navy ship leave course, the Marines are always on board. My name, as I said, is William Boone. I joined the Marine Corps in high school. I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey. In Elizabeth, there's 2 high schools, 3 actually. Thomas Jefferson in the 60s, I'm talking about, a little before all of you was born. In Baton High, that was all girls. And then there was Edison Tech, for those that did not know the direction they was taking at that time. The long story short is, in the 60s, during my senior year, a recruiter came to Thomas Jefferson and asked for volunteers. And as such, 8 of us in the senior year joined, and we all went to Vietnam, and we all came back without any major injuries. I used the GI Bill to finish my schooling when I came back, and for my first mortgage. The long and short of it is the schooling. I graduated, and this is the 70s now, And when I went to, a major was business finance in accounting as my minor. In the 70s, the banks wasn't ready for a Marine officer. So I was working out of the Newark office. I used a Snelling placement agency, and every time she would send me out, she would say, "This is your job." But they wasn't ready. So I was hired by my old school system, Elizabeth, New Jersey. Thomas Jefferson, my old football coach, was now in charge of substitute teachers. So I became a substitute teacher for 2 years as I was still going out attempting to get a job in finance. A long story short, which you think is possible, a long story short is the bank that hired me had called me in 4 different times for an interview, and they made a salary offer of less than 5 figures. I said to them, "I'm making more as a substitute teacher than what you're offering me." And that's when I got hired as a banker. I worked as a banker for 15 years, and as such, dealing with government guaranteed loans from SBA, Small Business Administration, that's a federal agency, and the state EDA, with small businesses and minorities and women-owned businesses. A long story short, the SBA came to me in the late 70s and asked me to come over and work for them because as a banker, we was making the most SBA loans in the state of Jersey. I eventually became the chief of finance for SBA, Small Business Administration. That's a good agency, by the way. It deals with small businesses for women's, for minorities, handicapped, and the whole subject matter is small businesses. They can lend and guarantee. We don't make the loans, the banks makes the loan. We guarantee the bank losses up to $5 million for anyone. And after that, we became, oh, by the way, the reason I chose the Marines was after 1947, when the president, after World War II, ordered all armed forces to integrate. The Marines fought tooth and nail not to. And lastly, the Marines asked for all members to at least be a high school grad. So in the 40s and the 50s, there was very few black people that was in college or going to school. We was in the fields or in factories. So that, plus the color of their uniform, I love their dress blues, induced me into looking at them. And that's my short history of being in the Marine Corps. I went to Vietnam. When I went into the Corps, I went in hoping to become a corporal, an NCO. After step 4, as a corporal, you move out of the barracks and you get your own room. But I ended up, because of NOM and surviving it, coming out as a staff sergeant, and it was a good thing. When I was teaching school, I used to tell the kids, if you don't know what you're going to do after graduation, think of the armed forces, any branch. But today I would not say that because of the circumstances. But it still is a good thing. The armed forces are here for us, for you, for your families, and those that's going to come later. So I say to you in my closing, I'm going to be here later. If you have any question that you want to ask me about the Marine Corps, I will be here, or anything about the SBA or the state EDA, Economic Development. These are all good programs that you should think about. The mayor mentioned that you should use the Veterans Office that has been established in Piscataway. I don't know what that offers, but I have never used the VA for anything other than financial purposes. As I mentioned, all of us came back from Vietnam with no major injuries or no mental problems. And as I stand here and say this, I'm proud to be here. I'm happy. I became a better person by joining the Marine Corps. I became a better person by learning as a banker and as a financial person, all because of the mentality of boot camp. Boot camp for the Marines on the East Coast is Parris Island, South Carolina. That's a very hot state in the summertime. You don't want to be there unless you're inside. Having said that, if you have any questions, I'll be here later if you want to ask them. Is that enough?
Good afternoon. I am Roy Lee Jarman, aka Simon, your poetry man. I'm the second of 11 kids by the late George and Minnie Bell Armstrong Jarman by way of Greenville, Mississippi. I want to say thank you all very much for allowing me to be a part of your program again this time. And I want to thank you guys, you all, whether you are officials or veterans or supporters, because it's very important. We know that November the 11th is Veterans Day. That's the day we set aside to call Veterans Day. But when you really look at it, it's a lot of our veterans are suffering every day. So just like Mother's Day should be every day, we need to make Veterans Day every day. We need to look around and be mindful of those that we come in contact with. I'd just like to mention two situations here. First of all, I'd like to pay honor to the 20 or so veterans that commit suicide every day. I think it's terrible that we go away to foreign lands to protect this country, and somehow we don't get a chance to be don't get a chance to be looked at once we get back. And we need to be able to reach out to those. I know we got a long ways to go, and I know we're trying to do a lot of the best we can. But let's keep that in mind. The second situation I want to talk about is the female veterans. Oftentimes, when we think of a veteran, we think of a man in uniform and etc. But we have a lot of female veterans who are suffering also. And oftentimes they are forgotten, and some, even if not forgotten, sometimes maybe pushed to the back. And we need to keep that in mind. My DAV group, Chapter 16, we work a lot with the Lions veterans up there, and sometimes we take the female veterans out and so forth to maybe a dinner or something. And they are so appreciative. So let's keep all that in mind. I want to share a couple of small, short poems. This first poem that I'm going to talk about, I've been ashamed to read it in a group setting. I was hoping to keep it on paper and that those that read it will come to some kind of realization within themselves. But I'm going to read it today. And I'm hoping that sometimes the controversial things that we do is what we may need to do to kind of stir the pot so we can get together to discuss things. Not to fight itself, but to discuss the situations and to come to some type of agreement with each other. This one is called Allegiance. The whistling sounds of the rockets, the thunder of the bombs, the crackling sounds of the grenades. They sailed through the hot, dense, dark night air and was interrupted only by a tremendous boom. As we lay buried in the hot, gritty, smoking sand, close enough to kiss in our foxhole. With filthy, grimy hands, We wiped each other's sweaty brow. We breathed into each other's face. We held each other's hand, and he did not care that mine was black. It's living proof, at least to me, that the expression war is hell is a true statement, because nearly a month ago, right before my very face, he swore his allegiance to a devout, cross-burning, hood-wearing, racist organization. Let's just think about that. Our lives and situations in our lives govern us, and we must sometimes give hearance to those situations. My next poem is dedicated to a wheelchair-bound veteran. And it talks about how he perceived that we perceive them, or maybe how we do perceive them in certain ways. Sometimes not in the normal way, but anyhow, I'll let you make your decision. And it's called Rolling Along Alone. I've now become a freak. My strong mind is weak. I'm a crippled man that no one can stand, but I keep rolling along alone. My head's full of phobias and fears. I'm offered only liquors and beers. My mind's clouded with smudges and smears. My eyes are strained and loaded with tears because I get no cheers. But I keep rolling along alone. I'm not handsome because I'm in this chair. I'm a little twisted, but I have pretty hair. They don't like my looks but I know my books. But I'm not really smart because I have a broken heart. Now, I'm not muscular, I'm really quite puny. And when I talk philosophically, they call me loony. Yes, I'm just a crippled man that no one can stand. But I keep rolling along alone. Thank you. Now, however bleak life is, there's a word called perseverance. And if we hold on and persevere, somebody said that if today can be no worse, then tomorrow must be a better day. So I just want to end on somewhat of hopefully a happy note. And this one is called Happiness Is. Happiness is an involuntary wry smile, stemming from my fluttering, sputtering heart that suffers the aches of writhing pain when we are apart. See, happiness is a swiftly falling tear from my adrenaline overflowing as I reach to the unlimited heaven and I pull them toward me, knowing that it's not the elements or the heavens that's moving at all from a tug so extremely small, but that's me growing. And it's because of love that I'll be showing. Yes, it's all because of love. But love's all because of you. And you. And you. You have no idea how grateful and how appreciative and how thankful I am that you allow me to share these slices of my life story with you. Thank you so very much. Again, I'm Roy Lee Jarman, aka Simon, your poetry man, the second child of the late Minnie Bell Armstrong and George Jarman Sr. by way of Greenville, Mississippi. And I'm praying that you will be blessed, be safe, and continue being a blessing to others. God bless you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll talk to you a little bit about how actually Veterans Day came about, and did some researching on it. And Veterans Day was not always called Veterans Day. It did not start out that way. And it is celebrated throughout the years under different names in different countries also. They really honor Veterans Day, especially in France, Australia, and the various allied countries. But it actually started during World War I, when we signed the armistice, and that is done. It was recorded by all veterans, and the day was given for reflection and quietness, and just think about what has gone on, what life is, and what happened throughout that time. Now, at that point, it was known as Armistice Day, and it sort of evolved from Armistice Day to Veterans Day. And it recognized that with Veterans Day, it was recognized as a sacrifice of all the armed services and everyone in the armed services, anyone who has served. When it was under Armistice Day, it was only for the World War I veterans. So it did not include the World War II or the Vietnam veterans at that point. So it kind of changed that way, and also the scope and the entire perception of Veterans Day changed. And it began celebrated on November 1st at 11 o'clock, which would be the 11th day of the month. There was a controversy where they wanted to change the date on it, and for it, because there was I'm just looking at my notes here what the actual date was. First it was observed in 1919, and then in 1938 Congress declared it a national holiday, but still at that time it was only for the World War I veterans. And then over time, people started grumbling that others were not included, and that it should be a broader umbrella for everyone. And that was changed. Then it came about, and it finally was changed so that it included all the veterans, and from World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and Korean War. So they became recognized there. Also, there were also some changes in the European front with how they celebrated Veterans Day. And theirs was always called Remembrance Day, so they do not call it Veterans Day. And the French celebrate it one day after ours, so for that particular celebration. And, there's an interesting thing that they do, and it is they call it Veterans Day is also a Red Poppy Day. The British Legion observed it or adopted the red poppy as their emblem for their uniforms, and what the poppy does to them, what it represents, and to also very much to the Australia, is that it is The poppy is red. It is the first flower that blooms on the hills of Normandy and in northern France and Belgium, where these horrible, terrible, terrible fighting took place. And they feel that the reason that the poppies are so red, and they are the first ones to come up, is because it represents the blood of all of those fallen in the field. It is the blood of the fallen. In 1954 was when the President Eisenhower signed an amendment which replaced Veterans Day and allowed including all. That's when he allowed all service members to be honored on Veterans Day for that. And then after that there was a uniform. It's called Uniform Holiday Act. You may have heard about that, and where they changed all the federal holidays were going to be on a Monday, and including Veterans Day rather than the actual day, but it'll be on a Monday. And it was thought that this would give 3-day weekend to people, which is very, very nice. However, there was a lot of grumbling over this from the Veterans Day people from that perspective, and they felt that it did not give enough respect for the veterans, and that they needed to have the program or to be recognized on that particular day, because that day, November 11th at 11 o'clock, was the precise date and the precise time when the armistice was signed. And eventually, this went on for a while, and then eventually in 1968, the Armistice Day was changed over to the Veterans Day, and also everyone that was included, and the date went back to November the 11th. So they have the actual day here wise during the week, we're here November the 11th. Otherwise, it would have been this past Monday, and we would have all had a nice holiday. But we're sort of honoring the veterans, the soldiers, and anyone else that is involved with the war and the horrific dying and the killings that go on with these wars that we have, and hopefully we don't have any more going on. Another interesting thing that we had, I was looking at the things that had gone on, and I came across the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And that's sort of an interesting background program for it. On Veterans Day in 1921, Warren Harding, presided over the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the burying of the entombing, actually, the first unknown soldier. And that was the soldiers that were chosen were from France, in that area where they had the Normandy beach and that entire area. And there were 4 caskets chosen of unknown soldiers that were to be selected. The caskets were all wrapped in total white, each one. And one of the soldiers was asked to pick which casket should be in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And they did not know who was in it or anything, but it was a fallen soldier. They were all fallen soldiers. All 4 of them were fallen soldiers that they did not know who they were. They could not identify them. And this particular person went and then had to lay a bouquet of white flowers on the casket that he chose. And it was sort of the second casket from the right. And that soldier's remains then were shipped to the United States and then entombed in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The other three who were not selected, they were taken back to Normandy, and they were buried there. Then the next war that they buried, people are selected an unknown soldier for that was from World War II. And that again was a similar situation where there were this time it was 3 caskets. And one of the soldiers, and it was an honor to do this, to be able to select the soldier who was going to be going into the tomb. And that happened, and there were 4 of them, so there were 4 soldiers in there. One is World War I, World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam War. However, so there are 4 entombed. Now, with the advent of technology, they thought that the powers to be thought that they could maybe identify one of the soldiers with, I guess, the DNA testing, whatever they had, that they would be able to identify the soldier. And they did identify one of them. They were able to, and that was a Vietnam soldier. So he was removed from there, and his family chose, when they found out that it was their son, chose to have him buried in a different place closer to where they lived. So in that area. So it's just very interesting, and it's interesting how the tomb is guarded 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, no matter what holiday, no matter what day it is, no matter what day the weather is, nothing. It is guarded 365 days a year. A soldier, in order to be a tomb guard, is a very, very special thing for them, and they have to do extra training with extra, not just military training, but how they dress, that they must be totally immaculately dressed. I mean, dress uniforms in these service, they're always immaculate. But there's even so much more of an emphasis on it. And they get 18 months of training on how to be a guard at the tomb. So they are truly, truly, I think that's another very, very difficult thing to do, because they are there by themselves the entire time. They're stationed there for 6 months to 8 months, served for 6 to 8 months. And they have to be there, and in order to take a break, there's a little area in the tomb where they stay through this entire time, because they don't leave. But then someone else guards the tomb while that person is taking a rest. And this goes on, and this is a tradition that goes on and will always go on. And so I think it's a very, very nice tribute to the soldiers. And I think it takes a lot of energy and fortitude to be a guard at the tomb of the unknown soldier, because they have certain steps that they have to follow, and a certain route that they follow around the tomb, and everything is very, very, very precise, very regimented, and they must not disgrace the army or the tomb in any way. So even in their own life, their spiritual life, they must remain that way. And even once they are no longer in the service, they are expected in their civilian life to uphold those standards of service and a good way of living, and to not disgrace anything that might possibly disgrace the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, that particular spot. So I thought that was really very interesting. I was not aware of all this ceremony and how complicated it really was. So we're gonna have to make sort of plan a trip to Washington and take a look at it a little bit closer, and with a different eye, with a different perspective, totally. So we'll try that. But anyway, thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming. On behalf of the Cultural Arts Commission and Nadine, thank you. We enjoyed putting these programs together with you. So it's great to do it, and it's also great to see all of you here. How many veterans do we have here? Actual veterans. Okay, nice amount. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you. Do all of you have banners? Do we have banners for all of you? Yes? Good. Good. No? Did I hear someone say no? Okay, all right, I will speak to you about that, and we'll get that taken care of. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to call up one of our new banner recipients this year, and that's Georgette Bush. Georgette, if you would come up and speak to our group a little.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? It's a good day. Every day is a good day when you get up and move, isn't it? Every day is a good day when you get up and go. My name is Georgette Bush. I'm retired Master Sergeant of 31 years in the Armed Forces. I want to first thank the committee for doing this and honoring the veterans. Not just here in Piscataway, just honoring veterans, period. I think I can speak for the veterans here. We truly appreciate that. You say thank you for your service. I say thank you for your support, because I'm telling you, a lot of people don't support the veterans, and that's sad. But it's all good. It's all good. I went into the service real briefly. Well, it's funny, I graduated from high school. And I went to school. I majored in commercial art and graphic design because I loved art. I went to school upstate New York. I had a twin brother. I said had. He's passed on right now. His name is George and Georgette. He left. He got out of high school and went into the Marines. He did very well. He was a Lance Corporal. And while I was in school, he would send pictures and things and traveling and everything. I'm like, I want to do that because I was I'm a person that likes a challenge or something, and I can try and see if I can conquer this. And that's the first time my brother cursed at me and told me not to come to Camp Lejeune. I said, I'm telling mommy. So he said, if you want to go into the service, do Air Force, do Navy, do Army, but don't come to the Marines. That was in the 77, 78. He said, that's when, they were really just starting to accept females in the service. So it wasn't really something that was really truly welcomed, if you understand what I'm saying. And he saw a lot of things that was happening. He said, I'd probably be in jail, so don't come. So I did my stint in school, and then I met my recruiter, Jonesy. I'll never forget him. Very honest, very straight up. He kept it real. He told me what to expect, what not to expect. He actually was the type of person that would come and help get me physically fit, not all the way, but to help me breathe, run, gave me the whole rundown of what females will probably be going through. He kept it real with regards to me being a female and a female of color, that you're going to come across some things that may not be very pleasing to you, but you have to know who you are. And that's just every soldier. If you know who you are and you stick with that, you're going to do just fine. You'll be just fine. With that being said, so I went in. My father, I'm going to put a pin in that for a minute. My father didn't believe I was going in until my recruiter came to pick me up. He's like, really, you're going? Yeah, Dad. Yes. What about school? I'll finish when I'm, And I actually finished school. Just want to let you know, I did finish school. I went in as commercial art graphic design for my associates and actually finished my bachelor's while I was on duty. And that was a whole different thing. That's another thing. But the recruiter said, you have to say goodbye to her here, Mr. Bush, because you can't go with us. Man, I'll never forget my father's face. He was like, wow, you're leaving. Yeah. But it was something, it was a choice that I will never regret. I'm glad I made that choice. I stand before you 66 years later, and I'm so happy I did choose to go into this service. No, it wasn't always easy. No, it wasn't always a happy time. But when they say that you have another family, that is true to this day. You actually have a whole new family when you are in this service. I'm not sure if anyone here can agree with that, but I know I do, because to this day, my sister soldiers, we still stay in touch with one another. To this day, we meet at least 3 times a year to make sure we're okay. We have lunch, we do things together. And we are now starting to travel because we're all up past 50 now. So we started to do that. I learned some strengths that I didn't really know I had. I began to appreciate myself for who I am and love myself for who I am. I went in as a reservist at first. Remember Camp Kilmer here in Edison? That was where I started out at. And when I took the ASVAB test, I scored pretty good. I said, well, let me just do admin and feel this out and see if I really like this. So I did reserve for a while. And then Desert Storm hit, and then we got put in. My unit was a training battalion, so we trained soldiers to go into battle. But before I could teach you anything, I have to go through that training. I can't teach you something I don't know. So we had to go through all that training before I could train you. And that's what we did, from up armored vehicles training, maintenance, physical fitness, combatives, name it. If you had to do it, we did it, and we trained you how to do it. When Desert Storm, gonna fast forward, Desert Storm and Shield hit, we were really, really put to the test, because we had a lot more to learn to deal with this type of battle that was coming up, if you understand what I'm saying. It's a mental thing, not just physical, everybody. It's not just physical. It is really a mental thing. So like I said, if you know who you are and you believe in who you are and you stick with that, and me, I believe in a lot of prayer. Me and God, we would look. Best buddy. Kept me stable a lot. I've had, on a personal note, some areas where were very challenging for me as a female. As I progressed in the military and went to schools, anything was offered, I took it. Went to schools, got better training. I was elevated to staff sergeant, and then I worked for what we call birds and stars. You all know the colonels and majors and commanders and stuff like that. I was actually, they actually drew me into with them. So I did a lot of traveling with them. And so I had to get clearances that were secret and other things because of the things and places I had to go with them. Eventually they made me the NCOIC of operations, which, because they kept trying to get me to go to OCS school, officer candidate school. I didn't want to be an officer. No offense if anybody's an officer in here. I just didn't want to. I like being with my soldiers. I like being in the field. I like being with them. And I just felt like I needed to be with them. So I was always boots on the ground, in the mud, come around. We were there. We trained that way. So they said, okay, Sergeant Bush, we need you to be NCOIC of operations. And they moved me to another unit, 1st to 309th. And it was really heavy. I had an overseas tour in Germany. Some of us were mobilized overseas to Kuwait. Most of us were here traveling throughout the state to train soldiers to go over. Since I was in JFK of operations, I pretty much had to be here with the exception of Germany. Germany is a little kind of touchy because I'm doing better. Germany was a challenging mission for me. Why? Because that's where I was attacked. I'm just gonna put it out there. And if I had said this story to you maybe beginning of the year, I'd probably sitting up here crying, and Kitty would have to come up here and just sit me down in that chair. But I'm actually in therapy right now for this because it took me that long to face the fact that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. I can actually stand here and say it wasn't my fault. And the PTSD, which they would tell me I had, I'm like, no, I don't. Yes, you do. So I'm like, yes, you do. Because I was attacked. I never put two and two together. The attack came from the back. I can't, if I'm in an elevator, I need to be against the wall. I can't have people, it bothers me when someone's too close to me behind me. If I'm standing in line in the grocery store, I'll move up or I'll just stand like this. But I'm getting better. I'm getting really better. But I said all of that to say this. I'm still standing here. I have my right mind. I'm positive of who I am. I appreciate what I have actually gone through because it made me a better person. Yes, I might be dealing with some difficult things right now, but guess what? I know who I am. I know who I am. And with the training that I had in the years that I have been in, it actually, believe it or not, helped me. And the therapist, and like the mayor said, the veterans clinic that's here, I actually have a physician here. I was going to Lyons, but it's so far, so my physician in Lyons actually told me about the clinic that's here in Piscataway. And I love my doctor that's here. She's really good. So I do, listen, take advantage of what we have here. She actually helped me to move forward in getting healed from that situation in Germany. Because when you're away overseas and you can't just get in the car and go home because something happened to you, you got to deal with that. And I'm gonna tell you, he might not have succeeded to what he was trying to do to me because I fought like I had no sense. I just fought and I got away. But it messed me up mentally. It did. But I kept it. Because at that time, no offense to the men, they had that good old boy thing going on. If a female goes and reports this to a commander or something, they're gonna look at you, oh, you're being a female, or you probably this, you gotta be strong and stuff. And what do you do? What do you do with that? And that was in me as well. So I kept it. I kept it until one day I went to see my physician and she was talking to me. She was just talking and I just broke. It just came because it's gonna come up and it's gonna come out. And I told her a little bit. She said, no, you need to get some help. And it's okay. It's okay to get help. It's okay to talk. You got to talk about it because when you talk about it, you begin to heal. You can't heal if you keep it in. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt like all get out, let me tell you, because they take you to that place that you don't want to go. But if you don't go there and embrace it, you can't heal. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but let it go. You can't let it go unless you embrace it and realize it and get that help. I'm not going to keep y'all too long, but I just want you to know I appreciate each and every one of you and all the sacrifices that you have made. And also not just the veterans, but the families. The families, I want to give the families a hand because it takes a lot for you as a family member, a wife, a sister, a brother to wait to try to understand the not knowing and knowing, because there are some missions I had to go on that my family could not know about. And that's hard for a family member. And I appreciate each and every one of you for that. It's just myself and my oldest sister now. I had a younger sister who was like my right hand. She took care of my son. She was his caretaker while I was away. And that was hard. To sign him over for the just in case you don't come home. That's hard, really hard, but I'm here. And I want to say to each and every one of you, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for the things that you have gone through. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for choosing to take care of the United States. Thank you for choosing to take care of all of us, people you don't know. Thank you. And I appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you. Listen, one more thing. I always tell other people. Oh, one more thing too. Two more things. I'm also an ordained minister. I got ordained in 2005. So a lot of prayer, there's a lot of things that has happened and that has helped me a lot. And I tell people, protect your peace. Protect your peace. Remember who you are, be who you are, and believe in who you are. God bless you.
I got drafted into the Army back in May of 1966. I was only out of high school 11 months when I got drafted. To give you a perspective of the way things were going back then, I got drafted and I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey for my basic training. Spent 8 weeks at Fort Dix, and I got my orders that I was going to go to Fort Polk, Louisiana. As soon as I got those orders, I knew I was going to Vietnam. If you're going to Fort Polk, you're going to Vietnam. It's funny how I got there because at the time, the airlines was on strike, the jets. So they had the prop jobs, and I was on the plane with another fellow. We left Newark, and we flew into New Orleans, and we missed our connecting flight that was supposed to take us, I think it was to Alexandria. And we wound up hitching a ride to the fort. I never hitched before, but the two of us, took us about 5 pickups before we got to Fort Polk. And we got there on time. We weren't late. We weren't AWOL, thank goodness. And we spent 9 weeks at Fort Polk. And it was almost like a little Vietnam being there. They had a prison set up for war games. You would go out in the night and they would send out men to try to capture you and bring you to this prison. It was like an evasion course. You want to evade the enemy. And I used to play like those games when I was growing up. So I used to play a lot of war games. So I just hid in the shrubs, in the bushes and everything like that until they blew the whistle and the games were over. And then we got to see who got captured and they got into the prison and things like that. We learned many things while we were there, to use different weapons that we needed to do in Vietnam. We learned to shoot the M16. We also had the M14, the M16, M60 machine gun, M79 grenade launcher, and shoot a 45. I'll never forget the two sergeants that came back from Vietnam. They were with the 101st Airborne Division. And they said that if you want to survive Vietnam, just listen to us and we'll get you through it. And they were right. I listened every single word, what they did and everything, the training. So after 9 weeks of this hard training, jungle training and everything, got to Vietnam, left McGuire Air Force Base, went up to Anchorage, Alaska. From Alaska, we went to Japan, and then from Japan, we went to Saigon. And we went to a facility called Long Ben, where they assigned the new recruits and that were there to what divisions and companies and where they were going to go. So I was fortunate enough to go to the 1st Cavalry Division. The 1st Cavalry Division was well known that they had the most casualties in Vietnam at the time. I think overall, through the whole war of Vietnam, I think like 19,000, somewhere around there, that they lost in Vietnam. My first experience was we flew down near Saigon, flew up to the Central Highlands, which is about 240 miles north of Saigon. And I went to our base camp of An Khe, where the 1st Cavalry Division was, and I got assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 8th Cavalry, which was an airborne division. I wasn't airborne, but I got assigned to an airborne division. Many of the soldiers that were there were airborne, so they looked at us grunts like, there were replacements and things like that. They got on our cases because we weren't airborne. Well, to make a long story short, my first day out in the field, I hooked up with this one sergeant who showed me that you're going to be on guard duty here out in the middle of nowhere. It's pitch dark. You couldn't even see your hand in front of you. And here I am sitting there. I didn't know what I was going to be doing, just listen to noises and things like that. And it was unbelievable. And if you ever see a map of the Central Highlands in Vietnam, we were stationed, one day I'd be swimming in the South China Sea. The next time I'd be walking through rice paddies. And a week later, I might be up in the mountains or in the jungle. There was so diverse landscaping there. It was unbelievable. But after I survived that, I wound up carrying the radio for the captain because we were in a firefight back in February 27th of 1967. And it was like one day before my 20th birthday, and I didn't think I was going to survive. The fella that carried the radio for the company commander got wounded, and little did I know that out of a company of roughly 120 men, I would get picked to replace him. So I carried the radio for the company commander, and which I wasn't thrilled about because knowing that there were a lot of snipers and people who would get shot first, but either the company commander or the radio operator. So as luck would have it, I say luck, but I came down with malaria about 4 months later. I had a temperature of 105.1. And I got medevaced out of the field. I was in the field hospital for about 10 days. They brought down my temperature. They stripped me of all my clothing. They put me on a rubber cot. They had chunks of ice that they packed on both sides of me. They had 2 huge fans blowing on me. At the lower part of the cot, there was a bucket. So as the ice melted, it rolled off this rubber mat into the bucket. Every so often, a nurse would come by and she would take the water and pour it all over me, the ice cold water. So I was at this field hospital for about 10 days, and I was there with soldiers that were wounded and had other ailments and things that they came down with. And the doctor would be going by with a clipboard and he would say, you're going to Hawaii to recover. You're going to go back to the States and everything. When he came back to me, he says, oh, you're going back out to the field to your company. So I wasn't super pleased about that. But I was pleased that when I did arrive at my company, I didn't carry the radio anymore for the company commander. Somebody else had replaced me while I was gone. So I went back to my old unit, my old platoon, and I was happy about that. So we continued our tour in Vietnam. We had a lot of close calls. I was very fortunate. I didn't get wounded. I did not get a Purple Heart. I saw enough action to get through that. And after being there for almost a year, I had 5 days left in country. Everybody kept a short timer's calendar, and they either wrote it on their helmet or they kept it on them. And I had like 5 days left, and this other fellow had 5 days left, and we're looking at one another, and I said, we're getting real short here. So sure enough, helicopter came out to the field, and the 2 of us got on the helicopter. And wouldn't you know it, we're on the helicopter, and we got sniper fire shooting at us. And I said, 5 days left in country, and I'm going to get killed. And so we made it back to our base camp. So after being there, we got to go, and that was it. Well, you were in Vietnam. You got to go on R&R, rest and recreation, I guess you would call it. And I lasted as long as I could. I had about 90 days left in country. And I said, I'm going, I picked to go to Japan. So I spent 10 days in Japan for my R&R. And I had severe thoughts of bolting and heading back to the States. I said, I'm out of Vietnam right now. I'm in Japan. I could board a plane and go, and no one will know the better. And but I did go back, and I went through it, and we survived. And after leaving Vietnam, I got my orders to report to Fort Ord, California. And wouldn't you know it, I became an MP. I didn't want to be an MP, but I only had like 5.5 months left in service, and they didn't know what to do with me. So I became an MP and put the 5.5 months left in in the service, and we survived. And that's it. That's my 2 years in the service in a nutshell. Thank you. And to all the Vietnam veterans, welcome home.
Hello, my name is Art Matthews. I'm a longtime resident of Piscataway. I coach football, Little League baseball, and a lot of things. My term in the service was in 1964. I went in December 1964. I went to take one of my friends to take the test in Newark. Somehow he flunked and I passed. They made me take the test. I was in high school, but they made me take the test. So I took the test. 2:00 in the afternoon, we were raising our hands to swear in, got the oath. And I said, well, where's my friend Clifton Campbell? So they said, they looked on the list. They said, we sent him home at 8:00 this morning. So I said, well, I'm in high school. I brought him here to take the test. So they said, well, did you swear in? So I said, yeah. So they said, well, now you're in the Army. So that was a couple of days before Christmas. So I had to go home and tell my mom on December 28th, I had to report to Fort Dix for training. So I think it was the 26th I told her, the day after Christmas. I told her, well, Mom, I got to go to Fort Dix. So she took me down to the Red Cross, took me to the high school to try to get me out of it. And I guess the Red Cross said, well, the sergeant said, if you go in now, there's no war. You know, you go in now, you complete your basic training and everything for 3 years, and you miss the war. So I said, okay, well, maybe it's better that I go in right now. So I went in. But from Fort Dix, December 1964 till March 1964, after basic training, you're supposed to get a 30-day leave. I never got a 30-day leave, but I had signed up to be a paratrooper. I seen some guys in, I guess they were in the gym or someplace. I seen some soldiers with their nice uniforms on. So I said, well, how do you get one of those uniforms? So he said, well, tell your sergeant you want to be a paratrooper. So I didn't know what a paratrooper was. So I went over and I told my sergeant I wanted to be a paratrooper. So I signed up to be a paratrooper. And then when I got to Fort Benning, Georgia, I looked at the 250-foot tower and I said, well, what are those towers for? And the guy says, well, that's where you jump. Before you jump out of the airplane, you're going to jump out. They're going to take you up on a tower and you're going to jump from there. And I was always afraid of height. I didn't tell my mother I went to the paratroopers because she would have fainted. So I said, okay. So after that, I became a paratrooper. They sent me to San Francisco. When I went to San Francisco, I had to wait because they didn't know what to do with us, really. So then all of a sudden, they sent us down to Okinawa. I went to Okinawa. I was with the 173rd Airborne. Right before May 1965, when they went to Vietnam. I got there, I guess the end of May. The 1st of June, I got sent to Vietnam. I was with the 319th Artillery. And like the gentleman there, he says, I became an RTO. I had no knowledge of an RTO or what the radio was about or anything. So this one guy from the 1st 503rd, he would tell me, he says, when you're walking on patrol, always lower your antenna, So I had to lower the antenna so the guys wouldn't snipe at you or shoot you. So I said, why do you have to roll it down? Crumble it. So he said, well, the first ones they shoot at is the RTO. So I said, I don't think I like this job. And being young, I had just turned 18. I had just turned 18 years old. I was out of high school. And when you're young, you didn't know too much. I was happy to be there, with the 173rd. I was with a bunch of guys. And like you said, I still meet with some of the people in New York. I'm with the American Legion. I belong to the American Legion. I'm a commander at the American Legion in Rahway, Post 499. But you get in the habit of staying with the people that you're in service with, and we had a good camaraderie. Okay, the guys, we still meet with each other. We talk. We have fun. We go out for breakfast. We go out for lunch, and it's an experience that I don't want to. I tell my kids, I said, well, you do what you want to do, but I says you won't like it if you have to go in there and have to be taught how to do things and do this and do that. Sometimes with the young kids we have now, it's hard to go up there and explain to them some of the things that we might have went through. I went in 65. I wasn't trained properly. I was with the 319th Artillery. I don't know a thing about artillery, so that's why they made me an RTO. I didn't know a thing about RTO, the radio operator. But I had a little common sense of doing certain things, and that's why they put me with the radio, I guess. After that, they put me with listening posts. I was on listening posts. So I said, well, gee, that's a change. Listening posts, you're out in the perimeter, right where the woods are. The first ones you're going to meet is the enemy, because they're going to come out. You got C4, you got your platoon, all your little things to go up there and let you know when you're being attacked and this and this and that. So, it was kind of hard because you really didn't understand. But after a while, I believe I learned a lot about Vietnam. I learned a lot about being in military. I learned a lot about being in combat, okay? Even though I didn't have the training that we knew. I knew how to shoot. I knew how to tell where my friends were, where the enemy was, and who the enemy were. And like he says, at night, you couldn't even see your hand, okay? I was attached with the Australians and the New Zealanders. They were the 173rd. And they would come at night and they would crawl up on our posts, our outposts, and they would tap us on the shoulder to let us know that they were, good guys. They weren't the enemy. So we knew not to shoot. So, being in combat, it's kind of difficult to explain. And I used to talk to young kids in grammar school and everything. And to them, seeing a soldier, talking to them about the military was one thing. But when you try to explain what went on in combat, you didn't want to get them excited. You didn't want to get them deterred from being in the military. You just had to speak about some of the things that wouldn't get them upset. But, there's a lot of things. I had one of the things I could talk about is some of the good things that I did. It wasn't good, but they were kind of comical. I remember coming back from one mission, and the sergeant put me on latrine duty. So he says, Matthews, you go over, I want you to go on latrine duty. You go over there, you clean the latrine. So I said, well, I don't know a thing about clean. So he said, all you got to do is get the gas, pour it in the bucket, and light it. So I got the gas can, I poured it in the bucket, in the latrine. But he didn't tell me you had to take them out of the back. So I went inside and I was pouring the gas in it. So I threw a match in it and the thing blew up. In the 17th Cav, I guess all the crap was flying around. So he says, who blew up the latrine? And they never put me on latrine. They didn't give me, didn't give me an Article 15 or anything, because I told them, I said, the sergeant didn't tell me I had to pull the cans out. He told me to just pour gas in there. So after that, I guess they said, well, you go back out in the listening post and just hang out there. But, other than that, combat, When I got wounded, I don't think anybody was near me when I got wounded. I heard mortars. You could hear a mortar when it's being shot, when it's being coming out of the barrel. And the third thing you hear is a whistle, or you hear a whistle, but you know it's going to land somewhere. So I was sitting on my foxhole, and I heard the whistle, and I heard the mortars when they went off. So I said, "Oh, I got to get out of my foxhole." So something told me, "Get out of your foxhole." Something, there was nobody around me. Something said, "Get out of your foxhole." And as I was getting out of the foxhole, the mortar ran into it landed in my foxhole. And I remember getting blown up, and it's like slow motion. You can see everything, my rifle, all of my equipment going up in the air. But then my friend was calling me towards him, to get out of the area. So as I was running towards him, they were shooting at me. So as they were shooting at me, they hit him in the shoulder, and he spun around and he got hit in the back. So it's kind of hard. I tell the story a lot, and sometimes you don't want to think about it. Yesterday, I believe, was the 60th anniversary of our unit. I was in Operation Hump, that movie We Were Soldiers with the first Cav. We were there November 8th. I went November 5th to November 7th. They took me out of the area November 7th, and they took me and sent me home. As I explained, I never had a 30-day leave. And my mom, I guess, kept writing to the Pentagon, stating that I had never came home after my basic training. I went from basic training, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Fort Benning, Georgia, and then to Okinawa, and then to Vietnam without going home. For some reason, she wrote to the Pentagon, and right before November 8th, they sent me home. November 7th, I got sent home. And November 8th, I was watching it on TV, and two of my friends that were in the foxhole with me got killed. And, I didn't know it at the time, but when I went back in December, they told me this person got killed and that person got killed. So, that stays on your mind. That's on my mind every day. And like you said, you don't forget. My wife used to complain because my kids would ask me, what did you do in Vietnam? And I would tell them, and my wife, Arch, they don't want to hear that. Don't talk about that. But I don't know if anybody remembers Tony Brown's journal. I was on Tony Brown's journal, and she was in the audience, and she raised her hand and asked me a question. So I said, well, why would you ask me a question when we're on TV? But when we're in the car, you didn't want me to talk. So, it's sometimes the parents or, civilians really didn't understand what went on in Vietnam. Like when I'm around soldiers that were in there, I could talk and I can, be free about what happened. Sometimes when you're talking to civilians, they don't want to hear, a lot of things that went on in Vietnam and this and that. And sometimes I just kept quiet about it. You don't want to talk about this, you don't want to talk about that. But, it's always going to be on your mind. You're always going to think about things that you did in Vietnam, things that you left away at home, how you wanted to get home instead of you couldn't. Some of my friends, when we were on listening, not on, but when we were out in the field, we would sit and we would talk. Well, how are we going to go? Let's go AWOL. So I said, well, how are we going to swim? We can't swim. There's no cars we can get in to drive us from here to there because it's about 10,000 miles away from the States. So I said, the only thing we could do is do what we were trained to do and, do the best that we can before, something else happens. So that's a little bit about my experience. It's not thrilling, but some of the things that's on my mind, you're never going to get it away from you. And, I just share some of the things that's on a person's mind. When you're a soldier, and you're in combat and you're in the military, you know, you think about a lot of different things that happened to you while you were in the military. I thank God that I'm home. I thank God that, you know, my parents, I was alive when they, you know, before they passed, they saw me. But other than that, you know, my friends, we still stay in touch with each other. And that's all you can do, you know. And I appreciate every person that served and all the people that from my town that, you know, recognize that we came home and this and this and that. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming today. Thank you for all the veterans who attended and who spoke with us. Thank you to Kitty Jutner for co-hosting this event with us. Thank you for all our council people who are here today. Thank you for all our attendees. I want to thank my colleagues, Jean and Liz in the back, who've been assisting with the program today. And thank you to Mr. Lee McGaskill, who will be playing some music for us. Please feel free to get up, have some refreshments, have some cake. If you feel like sticking around, we do have bingo. Keep in mind we're a public library, so we don't have a big pot of money, but we can play for fun. Thank you.